Welcome everyone. Today we're going to go through an unbelievable Nightmare Dungeon XP farm, Domain Tunnels, located in Wailing Hill, Scotland. This little Nightmare Dungeon is going to net you approximately 3 million XP per run, which equates, depending on your efficiency, to 55 to 60 million XP per hour. Let's get to it. As you can see, when I start off this dungeon, I start with just a little bit over 8 million XP. The first part of Domain Tunnels is you have to free 6 prisoners in order to advance to the next part of the Nightmare Dungeon. I do want to highlight the fact that I'm probably running this a little bit higher than I should be. In other words, I'm currently level 82 and the enemies are 12 levels above me. This is a tier 40 Nightmare Dungeon. I could easily have run this much lower, therefore decreasing the time it would have taken for me to complete this dungeon. But I'm doing tiers way higher than I should be, but just wanted to point that out. Domain Tunnels fits the bill when it comes to increased mob density. This is a nice little action-packed Nightmare Dungeon that packs a big punch. This is not for the faint-hearted. If you do not have a character that can kill effectively, you are going to get overwhelmed. That's what makes this Nightmare Dungeon so much fun and so much XP. Once you free the last prisoner, you will travel to the Dark Descent. This Nightmare Dungeon also has an event in it, which is action-packed. I can assure you, you will not be bored running this Nightmare Dungeon. Once you activate both levers, you then proceed to the next area where you need to return the stone carving to the pedestal. Again, another area action-packed with mobs, keeping in line with the unbelievable mob density in this Nightmare Dungeon. When running this Nightmare Dungeon, the things to watch out for, obviously the density of mobs is number one, but there's also poison pools and explosion pools that you must avoid and be wary of, as it will knock your health down to almost death. Remember, in order to maximize our XP and get the 25% buff on XP, enemies must be at least 3 levels higher than your player. So in order to properly calculate the proper tier for your character, take your character minus 54, and that will give you the exact tier for the Nightmare Dungeon that you need to run. That will ensure that you will get the maximum 25% XP when running that nightmare dungeon. When you get to this section of the map where one of the prisoners are, do not forget to open the chest by the prisoner, as it should trigger another event, garnishing you a lot more XP and mobs to kill. This is a small and tight area, so be mindful of all the explosions that are going on. The best method is to keep a safe distance from all the explosions that are happening in this tight setting. And with keeping with the theme of this nightmare dungeon, the mobs just keep coming and the loot just keeps dropping. Upon returning the stone carving to the pedestal, your last step in this nightmare dungeon is to fight Khazar the Abomination. Well, there you have it, guys. We started off this nightmare dungeon with just 8 million XP. And as you can see here, we ended up with just a hair less than 11 million. So almost 3 million in XP. Now, remember, this run of mine that I did for this video was actually a way higher tier nightmare dungeon and obviously took way longer. But if I was to run this where the tier, the enemies are only 3 or 4 levels above me, I'd be breezing through this nightmare dungeon in 3 to 4 minutes. So keep that in mind. This is a highly efficient XP farm.